I was lucky enough to be interviewed by Omar El Takari, the department, about a month and a half ago. And we talked about starting a YouTube channel, building a brand, whatever you want to call it, for the crowd that is over 40. If you go back and look at that video, which I'll link below in the description, it's got 150,000 views. But more importantly to me, it's got almost 700 comments. That video, like few others I've been a part of, touched a nerve. So yes, I want to talk to you, and I want to talk with Brian Adamson about starting a channel when you're over 40. But I want to go as far as to say you, yes, you watching this, should start a channel. And we're going to talk about why. I think there are 3 reasons why. And we're going to dig into this. But Brian, I know you saw that video. I know this was a topic that's near and dear to your heart. I know, unlike what people would think, you're actually just a touch over 40. I know he looks like he's 18, but he is over 40. So what say you?
Yeah, so this is near and dear to me. You know, I got a late start on social media. I didn't get on social media until 2018, which my predominant focus was on Instagram, just because that's what was introduced to me, right? I didn't know
Wasn't
YouTube.
a plan. Yeah.
I didn't even consume content on YouTube really at that point. I just was very unfamiliar with social media in general. And more recently, I've started to focus on YouTube, which that's a different conversation. But I would just start by saying this. I think a lot of people, 40 or not, are struggling with starting their own channels. And for me, Mike, it's always baffling to see the thoughtful comments, as you mentioned, right? 700 on one video, and you start reading through these comments, and then you want to see who this person is, right? Because it's so well thought out, it's so well articulated, it's so thoughtful. And you go on their page and they've been on YouTube for 13 years and have no videos. And I'm like, how does a person that has something this rich to say don't say it more often on their own channel, right? And so when I look at that, I say, well, what's the barrier for a lot of people, right? What's the barrier for a lot of people that are struggling with even getting their channel started? And so I was brought to this scripture reference. Matthew 23:11 says, the greatest among you must be a servant, but those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. And I thought about that. I said, man, that's so good, because in context, Jesus at this time was talking to his disciples about these religious leaders that were walking around, right? We know them today, that it's all eyes on me. It's, you know, it's me and everybody under me. It's all the attention is on me and not even God. And so Jesus was basically communicating, saying, if you want to be a winner in the kingdom and for the kingdom, the greatest among you must be a servant. And how does that coincide with us, right? It coincides with us because what we do every day, Mike, as creating content, is we're serving. The greatest among you, the people that have the most to say and have earned the right to say it, are servants. Like, that's the way we got to give up to go up. And so I want everybody that's out there considering, you know, should you not? Well, if you have something worthy that could be a benefit to everyone else, then according to scripture, it's your responsibility to be a servant and deliver that to those people.
I love that. And it's still wild to me that every week we talk about this stuff, you know, these verses, these scriptures that were captured thousands of years ago are so relevant in a world where this was written when social media, you know, wasn't even a, you know, not only not a possibility, but I mean, it was far from it. It's just wild for me to see how eloquent it was put together. So when I think about this concept, starting a channel over 40, there's 2 things that hit me. One is I believe YouTube is the platform that most of you should start with. Now, why do I think that? Because I think there's a lot of TikTok, IG, you know, LinkedIn, all these others that it is not rich. There's not a lot of depth, right? How much depth can you give in 60 seconds, right? When you're on YouTube and you do a 4, an 8, a 12, an 18-minute video, you're going to get to know the person, right? And especially if you do it live, like I have a daily financial news show that goes live at 7:30, and you guys see all the mistakes and the ums and the ahs, and sometimes my dogs interrupt me, and it's just you get to see the authentic self. So I would tell somebody over 40 who's thinking about it is go to YouTube. Now the other side of the coin, I think most people overthink it, make it too complex, and try to solve for perfection. Let me be very, very clear. I did about 1,000 videos on my phone with Apple wired headphones. That's all you need. That's all you need. Second, don't edit your videos. I have an unfortunate truth and a blessing. Nobody is going to watch your first 50 videos. So get them started, learn, practice, right? Creating content is a skill. So go practice it. You can't learn something without practice. You know, creating content, not publishing doesn't count. If it's not in the real world, it doesn't exist. And then, you know, this whole notion of perfect. I think in a world that is quickly accelerating to AI, we are very quickly going to want real, non-perfect, blemishes and all. We are going to start to seek that out. And I suspect over the next 12 months or so, there will be some YouTube channels that are just completely AI generated in voice, in script, and everything. And it'll be perfect. It'll take off for a second. And then people will realize it's not real. There's no heart. There's no person. So, and the last thing I'll say about this before I throw it back is we as Gen X, we as baby boomers, we frankly as late millennials, we need to realize that YouTube needs to stop being a place where we have 19-year-old life coaches. Are you freaking kidding me? 19-year-old life coaches? You're insane, right? You ain't seen shit yet. You're my gosh, crazy. So let's own it. I think the 19-year-old life coaches are winning now because Gen X and baby boomers haven't stepped up and taken our rightful place. So get off your butt and give the world the gift of you. That's what I have to say.
Yeah, well, you said a whole lot, and it's hard to even follow that up because everything that you said is solid. Okay, but something you said actually took me. So you said that if it's unlisted, it don't count, right? Okay. Like if it's not published, it doesn't count. And I came across the scripture this morning, 1 Corinthians 9:26. This is gonna really freak you out. Okay.
Oh no.
It says, "So I run with purpose in every step. I am not just shadow boxing." So when you just said, like, if it's unlisted, it don't count. One of the most prominent figures in scripture, Paul, he wrote 2/3 of the New Testament, says, "So I run with purpose every step. I am not just shadow boxing." Damn. We got to do the work and make it count. We got to be bold enough to put it out there. We can't just make videos and keep it unlisted until we think we're going to work up the courage or the confidence to finally say, let me go ahead and share this publicly. We got to share it publicly, let the chips fall where they may. And here's the other part that I think is so important to just dovetail off of what you said, Mike. When you are in your 30s, in your 40s, in your 50s, 60s, even 70s, you have an advantage that you don't know that you have. Now, you may think because the 18, 19-year-old seemingly better on social media is getting more reach, more accolades. Well, it's just because in today's world, visibility a lot of the time dwarfs ability, right? So they become more visible. But at the very same time, people are looking for substance. So if you can show up, here's what you have over them: competence that breeds real confidence. See, they're running on false confidence. They're running on stuff they heard in seminars and things they read in books. You're running on things that you could write a book about, things that you've actually experienced. So you don't have to foster this manufactured confidence. You have true competence of a thing that you can build on.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You have real scars, not repeat of somebody else's story. Right. So I get asked all the time, and this is something I hope I keep putting out there, right? Starting over 40. A lot of people ask, okay, great, Michael, I'm over 40, I'm 50, I'm 60, 70. What do I do? Well, here, let me simplify it for you. I think there are 3 ways to start a channel, right there. And I will give you all 3, and you can just decide which one's right for you. 1, probably the easiest thing to do, because I believe if you're over 40, you probably have liked something for a decade or more. I'm talking a hobby, an interest, and it doesn't matter to me how niche it could be. If you've made your homemade peanut butter for, 20 years, if you have a special cheesecake recipe, if you've been knitting, or if you've been collecting classic cars or motorcycles or Pokemon or whatever it is for more than a decade, you have a channel. No question. You have a channel. Number 2, a lot of us over 40 have been through some stuff. It's the scars. It's a divorce. It's a loss. It's a job transfer. It's a health scare. Whatever. There's a channel there, right? A buddy of mine who watched that video from Omar, he's now 41, soon to be a father of 2, but he was a cancer survivor at 28. 28! There's a channel there. DH, if you watch this, yes, I'm talking about you. And then the third one, let's assume you're over 40. You're boring. You don't do anything except work, eat, and sleep. You have no hobbies. You have no friends. You have none of this stuff. You don't think you have anything. First off, you do, but I'm just gonna go the other way. Let's just assume you don't. Well, congratulations. The third channel you could do is document your process of doing something, right? You're going to build a brand new channel about, hey, I'm going to figure out real estate, or hey, I'm going to get a 6-pack abs at 45, or hey, I'm going to learn Spanish and travel to Mexico. Hey, I'm going to learn this, that, the other thing. There are 3 ways to get started over 40. Choose whichever one fits you. And oh, by the way, here's the beauty about a YouTube channel. Once you start and you start building an audience slowly, the audience will tell you where to go. My channel today is nothing like it was when I started. I had no idea what I was doing. In fact, I don't delete anything. Go back on my channel at the very beginning. You could see all kinds of crazy things I tried. But now the channel has been pretty consistent for several years. So that's my thinking to the folks like, okay, great, I want to do it, but where do I start? It's like, okay, I removed that barrier. Get started.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, Mike, great insights. A couple of things I want to add to that. Something you said sparked something in me. So when I got on social media in 2018, which again, my predominant focus was on Instagram. I did a ton of lives, all of that. I just wasn't familiar with YouTube, but I was cutting my teeth, right, nonetheless. And so for the first 6 years, all I ever talked about was real estate. I was the real estate guy, right? Because I felt like that was the thing that my audience would benefit most from me, and things of that nature. Well, that narrative has changed, right? There's so much more to me other than real estate. And quite honestly, I get tired of talking about real estate. And so I'm like, what are the things that both publicly and privately people benefit from me most? So like, what if somebody called me about something, what would that thing be? And it's typically some type of wisdom about life or business, right? And so, which is all tied to my faith. And so, in looking at that, I had to do something that was bold, which was take a pivot on my messaging. And I just want to just echo what you said, right? Because you started one way, the narrative has changed for you, based off of what those that consume the content have suggested. But I just want to also encourage others to just know you can figure it out while you're doing it. Right? It's not set it and forget it. It's do it. Check the pulse of the people that you're feeding. Understand what are the things that they can really glean from you and need from you, and lean into that, and be okay with being multifaceted. I don't recommend having a channel that's all over the place long term, but what I do recommend is you got to put the bobber out there in the water and figure out what they're biting on, right? And don't be afraid to do that. You're not going to ever have it all figured out before you get started. You have to get started to eventually get it figured out. And just real quick, Mike, going back to the scripture reference, Matthew 23:11-12, the greatest among you must be a servant, but those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. So here's the other good news. You get on there full of humility and you're operating in true wisdom and competence in the said area that you could talk about until you blue in the face. The people will exalt you. You don't have to exalt yourself. And those that run out here in social media world that exalt themselves, I promise you they are being humble. So just lean into that, the scripture, the principle, the promise, and understand that you are more than enough. And your heart posture when you get on this platform or any other one is just to serve. Mike and I aren't creating this because it's not for us, it's for you guys, right? Like every single time we step up to the plate, it's always about how is this going to benefit the audience? Otherwise, what will we do it for, right? Like I don't need to sit around and talk about myself all day. I'm talking about those things that I think will help move the needle in others' lives.
Yeah. Again, if we're talking to the audience over 40 who's thinking about it, do it. Because, if you stick at it for 6 months, you will get better. You will become more confident. You will find your voice. You will have fun. But most importantly to me, you will see your efforts compound, and the positive impact you make in lives will grow. And then once it starts, it grows every month. And I've been doing this together for 3 years, I think, probably more.
Mm-hmm.
And every time we talk, we're getting more views, we're getting more positive feedback, and it's just fun to watch it compound. And I believe you and I specifically attract the go-giver audience. And if you watch this channel and you consume multiple videos of Brian and mine, there's a very good chance, highly likelihood, that you are what's called a go-giver. I just want to encourage you to get started. Yeah. I understand it's hard. I understand you're nervous. I understand this, that, the other thing. Just do it anyway. Yeah. It will get better. I promise.
Yeah. And I do want to just say this. If you can buy into this idea that you're only going to measure inputs and not outputs, I promise you, it's going to make your life in the pursuit of this a lot easier. See, when you make the commitment, as I have, every week, live Q&A, 2 p.m. Eastern on my YouTube channel for 52 weeks, I made that commitment regardless of what the outcome. So that simplifies things for me. So now all I got to do is show up prepared to talk about something that I would love to share with the audience. And whoever hears it, and whoever doesn't. Yeah. But knowing that I showed up to do my very best to convey something that I think would be helpful to those that hear it, to move the needle in their lives. I was going to do that anyway, right? So same is true for you. If you can make your measurement stick input oriented and not output oriented or outcome oriented, the pursuit of this will be a lot more peaceful for you.
Love it. Love it. Brian, where can people find you?
Brian Adamson Official on YouTube, Instagram, and everywhere else. And seriously, shout out to everybody from the ORAT family that joined this past Thursday. We had a really good time. I'm doing live Q&A business coaching every single Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern. So come hang out.
Thursday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Check him out. Brian Adamson. You're amazing, brother. Take care.
All right.